5 conspiracy theories about outer space. If the television series Star Trek planted one idea in our minds, it's that space is the last frontier. Even if we ever learn everything there is to know about Earth, there will still be mysteries in space to explore. We are only in the early stages of this exploration. Voyager 1, a spacecraft designed to study the outer planets of our solar system, entered interstellar space in September 2013. Who knows what questions it will answer as it continues its journey through the stars? But we know we have a lot of questions we want answered. Are there intelligent species living far beyond the solar system? Could wormholes hold the secret to faster-than-light travel? The answers to these questions, and others we haven't thought of yet, await us in space. But some people believe that there are secret organizations that try to hide important information about space, details that the rest of us can only guess at. This is where we enter the realm of conspiracy theories. Keeping in mind that the truth is beyond us, the guiding principle of The X-Files, another television series that fired people's imaginations, will explore 5 of these space conspiracy theories. 1. Illuminati and Majestic-12. No discussion of space conspiracy theories would be complete without mentioning the Roswell incident. In July 1947, American farmer Mac Brazel discovered some strange remains in an area near Roswell, New Mexico. Brazel was unable to identify the debris, but a military base in the region released conflicting information about the origin of the material. Several local newspapers then picked up the story. Although from the beginning people considered the incident unusual, it was several years before the first theories about extraterrestrial activity really took off. During that time, dozens of UFO enthusiasts published stories and books about the Roswell incident. The leading theory is that the debris came from an alien spacecraft and that the United States government seized the material for further study. It was speculated that authorities transported the remains to an Air Force base in Roswell. Others say they were taken to Area 51, a secret military base in Nevada where the government tested experimental aircraft. There have also been stories of autopsies being secretly performed on dead aliens. Some people have claimed that anyone who tries to uncover government secrets about aliens is visited by black-suited officials, the so-called men in black, who aim to silence witnesses. U.S. authorities have repeatedly denied they have intelligence on aliens, but many conspiracy theorists have dismissed the government's answers. Officially, the Air Force says that the debris found at Roswell came from a crashed surveillance balloon, which was part of the top-secret Project Mogul, and that they have no information about alien life forms. The CIA put a nail in the coffin of the theory when it officially acknowledged the existence of Area 51 in a document about the U-2 spy plane. The revelation confirmed what many writers had already said about the military base. It was a testing ground for top-secret military aircraft. 2. Planet X. Does our solar system contain a giant planet, still unknown to most of the world's population? Yes, according to the Planet X theory. This theory says that our solar system has a 10th planet, if we count Pluto as a planet. Otherwise, the mystery planet is the 9th. The planet is assumed to be enormous and on an orbital path that will soon bring it close to Earth. Proponents of the theory cite seismic and weather data as evidence of this planet's increasing influence on Earth. They also claim that, around the world, more and more astronomical observatories are being forced to close their doors to prevent the public from learning about the approach of the planet, thus preventing panic among the population. So far, several astronomers have stated that there is no evidence to support the Planet X theory, and that if the planet did exist, people would be able to see it even without a telescope. Even if a telescope were needed to observe this supposed celestial body, very little would prevent amateur astronomers from seeing it. It would be impossible for all astronomers to be controlled, pressured into silence, about such a colossal discovery. 3. The Flat Earth Society. In 1956, Samuel Shelton founded a society that presented a bizarre theory about the shape of the Earth, namely that it is flat. Shelton based his theory on what he called common sense and personal observations. Shelton stated that the scientific evidence that the Earth is spherical is dogmatic, meaning that scientists were making this claim without providing adequate evidence. Later, when shown satellite photos of the Earth, Shelton claimed the images were fake. He and members of his society continued to support the idea that the Earth was flat and that those who disagreed with this finding were part of a conspiracy to hide the truth about the Earth. Shelton died in 1971, after which the management of the company was taken over by Charles Johnson. He led the society for 30 years until his death in 2001. Then the organization fell apart. Critics of the Flat Earth Society say that its members simply deny any evidence that conflicts with their worldview without offering plausible alternative hypotheses. It is hard to understand how this theory has been perpetuated, given that people have known for a long time that the Earth is, relatively, round. The ancient Greeks deduced, by measuring the shadows, that the surface of the planet is curved. This led astronomers to conclude that the world is, in fact, like a globe. The myth that people during the voyages of Christopher Columbus thought the Earth was flat has no basis in fact. The discussion was actually about how big the Earth was, not whether or not it was flat. 4. Face from Mars. In the 1970s, NASA launched two spacecraft, Viking 1 and Viking 2, on missions to Mars. Both photographed the surface of Mars and sent the images back to Earth. In one photo, a hill on the surface of Mars resembles a human face. Researcher Richard Hoagland claims that the structure doesn't just look like a face, it definitely represents a face. Hoagland believes that Mars was colonized by an extraterrestrial civilization and that the face is evidence of the presence of an extraterrestrial city in the region we now call Cydonia. However, when other satellites photographed the surface of Mars, images from the Cydonia region showed that the face looked more like an eroded hill. In his book, Hoagland argues in support of the idea that the equipment used by NASA to take the later photos was not as accurate as the Viking equipment. It also claims that NASA doctored the images, making them look as little like a face as possible. It should also be noted that people tend to recognize distinct shapes and patterns even on surfaces where no such thing exists. One such example is clouds that remind us of certain animals. This phenomenon is called pareidolia, and there are several examples, including regarding the moon. 5. The alienation was a stage. The most important of all space conspiracy theories is that the lunar missions were rigged. Those who believe the landings were staged and filmed on Earth say the United States did not have the technology to carry humans to the moon. They claim that NASA faked the landings to make people believe that the United States had fulfilled President John F. Kennedy's promise to put a man on the moon before 1970. What evidence do the skeptics present? First of all, there are no stars in the sky in the moon landing videos. NASA says this is because the moon's surface and the astronaut suits were so reflective that they were too bright for video cameras to capture the starlight. Another aspect is that as the astronauts plant the American flag in the lunar soil, the flag appears to be waving. Since there is no air in space, how is such a thing possible? NASA says the astronauts kept moving the flag stand back and forth while driving it into the ground to keep it in a vertical position. The movements caused the flag to move back and forth as if it were being waved by the wind, even though there is no air on the moon. NASA says there is ample evidence that humans have reached the moon. There are photos, videos, and testimonies from the 12 astronauts who set foot on the surface of the moon. The astronauts returned with soil and rock samples, which NASA also presents as physical evidence of human presence on the moon. The most vehement supporters of the lunar conspiracy theory claim that all this evidence is false or comes from unmanned missions to the moon. A detail that puts gas on the fire is NASA's announcement that all original records, magnetic tapes, of the 1969 selenization have been lost. Somehow, they disappeared from the archives or were destroyed by overwriting with other data. Regardless of the extent to which these conspiracy theories reflect reality, space holds some of the greatest mysteries humanity will ever face. Scary initiations. Big banks and the manipulation of capital flows. Possible links to Rockefeller, Rothschild, Adams, and Bush. Exploring a huge body of evidence, documents, and connections, the book Illuminati, the secret society that hijacked the world by award-winning journalist and author Jim Marrs sheds light on the history, workings, and power of this secret order. Mars presents the experts of both camps, from those who dismiss the Illuminati as a short-lived group of little consequence to the skeptics who dare to question the government's claims, as well as the wild speculation and attempts at silencing of those who asked uncomfortable questions. Gnosticism, the mystery schools, Roshaniya, the Knights Templar, the Assassins, the Rosicrucians, the Skull and Bones, the Knights of Malta, the revolutions in France, Russia, and America, as well as the structure, symbols, and theology of the Illuminati, all these aspects are addressed in the present book. Mars examines the group and its subversive ways of operating, investigating the Bavarian origins of the Illuminati, the all-seeing eye in the pyramid on the US dollar bill, the protocols, or procedures, used to usurp national governments and achieve world domination, and the symbolism of the Illuminati found in the logos of today's major corporations. Wealth, power, and intrigue collide in this expose of the Illuminati, their history, connections to influential people, and their place in today's society.